We're now live.
Good day. This is Leo Gilling, back with you on the 6th. We're in the middle of the day, the 6th session today. At this point in time, we have the legal sector that's presenting to you for the next hour. Welcome everyone from on the social media platforms. Welcome all the panelists. And at this point in time, I'd like, before I turn it over, a lot of Jamaicans across diaspora are either hiding or shy or not wanting to talk about issues relating to their own personal lives, immigration, criminal, all of these various legal issues, and they're afraid to talk to someone. So here we are, we're bringing some persons to you who can talk to you and persons who you can talk to. And I want to, at this point in time, welcome Ms. Michelle Fanger, attorney Michelle Fanger, who will introduce you to her panel. And let's pay some bill first. Come on. Come on.
Coming up.
Okay, great, thank you.
One second.
In the meantime, oh, there we go.
Our family and friends are a big part of who we are. They are our biggest supporters and confidants, and our source of bellyfuls of laughter.
And when it comes to keeping you connected, Western Union is here to make it safer and easier with their digital services. Now your family and friends overseas can send you money without leaving home by using the Western Union app or westernunion.com. Just visit gkmsonline.com to register and share your banking details with your sender to start receiving funds directly to your bank account, so you don't have to leave home to collect. Grace Kennedy Money Services, home of Bill Express, FX Trader, and Western Union, doing our part to help you stay safe and connected to the ones you love.
And,
One more video.
Okay.
Come on, if you see.
Hi. Fellow Jamaicans at home and abroad, Jamaica's Social Stock Exchange needs your help to assist micro and small businesses which have been negatively affected by COVID-19. We are inviting your financial support for Monotech Engineering Services and Teen Challenge. Monotech Engineering Services is currently focusing on repairing ventilators and monitored machines for all hospitals islandwide. Teen Challenge Jamaica caters to at-risk youth with drug addiction problems. Please visit the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange website at jsseja.com for details on how to make your donations. Thank you.
All right, Jamaicans, it's time that you speak with our legal sector. Here is the moderator, Ms. Michelle Fanger.
Hello, good afternoon, my fellow diasporans and Jamaicans. I am Michelle Fanger, and I am the chair of the JDTAN Legal Support Sector and Immigration Task Force. And this is a legal forum under the slogan, Be in the Know. This task force is designed to provide diasporans with legal information to keep us all in the know. As we all know, knowledge is power. As a disclaimer, the information provided is opinions of the panelists and should not be viewed as legal advice and does not create a client-attorney relationship. If you need clarification on the topics covered, please reach out to the organization or the panelists directly. Let me hand it over to our moderator, Christine Thompson. Okay.
Good afternoon, fellow diasporan. Welcome to another session in the series, Jamaica Diaspora Day Live. And this is hosted by the Legal Sector Support and Immigration Task Force with this presentation, Be in the Know. Today, of course, we have assembled an esteemed list of panel comprised of attorneys who are skilled in the area. Of course, each attorney will be given a 10-minute slot to make a presentation, after which will be followed by a 10-minute Q&A session. I'll turn over to our first panel, Ms. Michelle Fanger. Michelle Fanger is the founder of the Follow Law Group, and her areas of specialties include immigration, Florida family law, and tax. Michelle, over to you.
Okay, thank you again. Okay, I can't find out. Well, my focus today will be on issues that a lot of people have pointed out to me in regards to the COVID pandemic and what's happening in relation to immigration. The first thing I want to point out is that a lot of individuals who are green card holders do oftentimes remain in Jamaica or outside the country for an extended period of time. We are required, based on the fact that we do have a green card, to follow certain regulations. One is that you have to establish that your home is here in the United States and not in Jamaica. So one of the most important things is that individuals will travel back and forth. But you must understand that even though you travel a few times back and forth, it might be to them that, oh yeah, you reside outside of the country. If you do want to protect yourself, if you do feel like you're going to be out of the country for an extended period of time, I would recommend that you get a re-entry permit. That permit allows you to be out of the country for 2 years. The only thing with that re-entry permit is that it does not, those 2 years does not calculate towards your citizenship, but it is a way to protect you so you don't lose your status. Another question individuals have is that in regards to COVID and they've been out of the country for a period of time, what's going to happen? As you know, with the pandemic, there's a lot of exceptions because you cannot travel as the borders are closed. They're reopening. So that's a good example of you for an excuse for you to provide to explain to them why you have been out of the country for an extended period of time if they do have questions with you entering the United States. But now that the borders are reopening, I would recommend that you look at the procedures, protocols for you to leave the country and re-enter the United States, and definitely take steps to leave the country. Another issue that I can point out that I've been asked is individuals who are trying to get their citizenship and they're a male and they realize that they have not registered for the selective service. When you get a green card as a male between 18 to 35, you are required to register with the selected service. You don't have to go into the military, you just have to register. A lot of people don't do that. So if you do have a male friend or family member who is between 18 to 35, they are a green card holder, just point out to them, oh yeah, you have to register. And another thing, taxes, I have a minute. For taxes, you are required to pay taxes even if you're outside of the United States. If you earn income, royalties, or anything pertaining to income, you have to file taxes. And thank you all for lending me your ears. It was a short time, but we're going to move on to the next panelist. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. And of course, our next panelist is Miss Colette Small. Miss Colette Small is a founding partner of the law firm Slater & Small. She practices here in Florida. Miss Small is board certified by the Florida Bar as a specialist of elder law. So of course, anybody who has a senior, is concerned about, or is a senior, you'd want to tune in to Colette. Colette, you're on. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I hail from the Garden Parish of St. Anne, and I grew up running around the sandy beaches on the north coast of Runaway Bay. My area of practice, as was mentioned earlier, is elder law, and it's a highly specialized field of legal practice. And it's devoted to not just the needs of the elderly, but also to individuals with special needs, their families, and those who are planning for the future. And it has a primary emphasis on promoting the highest quality of life for individuals. My topic today is estate planning, the secret to building intergenerational wealth. And this topic is especially relevant as many of our people, especially the older generation, view this topic as taboo. We as a people are behind other ethnic groups in estate planning and building intergenerational wealth due to our cultural challenges. Now, I am one of only 114 attorneys in the state of Florida who is board certified in elder law. And I am the only person of Afro-Caribbean descent in the state who is board certified in elder law. Yet, I rarely see clients that look like me. So I welcome this opportunity to share my expertise with the diaspora community. I will discuss planning for passing on your wealth efficiently when you pass away, as well as living your best life while preserving your wealth. Okay, let's get to it. Now, some of you may say that you don't have wealth in the general sense of the word, but please stick with me. Don't tune me out quite yet. By wealth, I mean your valuable possessions, your resources, what you have worked so hard for. It may not be a fortune, but it has value, especially to your loved ones. Now, there's several estate planning tools that can be utilized to efficiently pass your wealth along. And I just want to let you know, first of all, that everyone has an estate plan. You have the one that you make, or the one that the government, wherever you live, has made for you. Now, the one that you make is the preferable plan for many reasons, because it's in your control. You pick who inherits, whether it's your child, your friend, because we all know sometimes friends are like family, your church, your cat. Yes, I have done those. And you get to pick what they inherit and how much of it they get. And then there's a plan that I mentioned earlier that the government picks for you. Now, this one is out of your control. Your things pass by default, sometimes according to some very archaic and rigid set of rules that are established by law. And who gets what of your hard-earned assets is probably not who you would choose. So that kind of planning creates emotional problems, financial problems for your family. The court gets all mixed up in your estate, and the cost is greater. So I want to talk very briefly about some of the tools that we use when we pick your estate plan. We have a will, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. It's a legal document that provides written direction for the distribution of your property at death, and it requires some court oversight. Then we have trust. Trust are documents that are created at your direction, in which you pick one or more people to manage your property, and you give them directions as to what you want them to do and how you want them to manage the money for your benefit and for the benefit of your heirs. Trusts, there are many different types of trusts. We custom make these, we write them to fit what's going on with you. We talk about what your family dynamics are and make sure you get into the right type of trust. Trust gives you all kinds of control. I like trust because I like control. And the good thing about trust, they give you control even from the grave, because not only are you leaving your assets, but you could decide if your daughter doesn't finish nursing school, she's not getting to live, she's not getting your house. If your son does, your son only inherits when he turns 35 years old. So trust generally doesn't require court oversight. It's way more private. Also, I like those because if you're like me, I'm a very private person, and you don't have the publicity or the subject to court review like you have with a will. And it's a less expensive process once it's set up. Moreover, your heirs inherit almost right away, so the time is a factor, and time is money, as we all know. Something that a lot of people don't realize, deeds are also a great way to effectively pass property if they're set up properly. They could draft deeds in a manner that allow you to retain the ownership of your real estate while you're alive, but then the real estate immediately passes to your named heirs upon your death without the need for probate. Again, your heirs inherit immediately. Okay, So there are many other tools that I have in my estate planning toolkit. The main thing is you want to make sure that you get a professional involved to get it done and get it done right. Yes, lawyers are expensive. I will not deny that. But if you think we are expensive to draft documents, wait until you see what happens when people don't agree, and then we're litigating and we're going to court. And your son has a lawyer, your daughter has a lawyer, your business partner hires me. Your son's attorney gets paid, your daughter's attorney gets paid, I am getting paid, and whatever is left, if anything, that's what goes on to your heirs. Okay, enough talking about what happens when you die. Let's talk about right now. You're alive, living your best life while preserving wealth. Again, there are many tools in my toolkit that we could use in estate planning, and they're called advanced directives. And some of the more common ones are living wills, which is a medical, it's a document which states your medical desires regarding life prolonging procedures if you have a terminal condition. There is healthcare surrogate designation. This names another person as your representative for medical decisions if you're unable to make these decisions yourself. A popular document is a durable power of attorney. This allows you to appoint a trusted person called an agent who could help you with your financial and sometimes your medical decisions. There are do not resuscitate orders, which instruct hospitals or medical emergency medical personnel not to resuscitate a person in the event of a cardiac or pulmonary failure. So these are some of the many, many tools that we have. Others are naming guardians for your minor children. If you're parents of minor children, prenuptial agreement, postnuptial agreement, business succession planning, tax planning, planning for marriage, planning for divorce, planning for your intellectual property, managing your income from your online sources, your income from your blog, your trademarks, your images that are out there online. Okay, so in conclusion, as an elder law attorney, I highly recommend that my clients engage in proactive estate planning ahead of when there are no emergencies. You want to do that. There are no emergencies on the horizon. You want to plan proactively rather than reactively when there's a crisis. Being prepared leads, if you're unprepared, you're going to be planning in a crisis, which in addition to being way more expensive, severely limits the options that are available to you. And if you fail to plan, then what happens to your property and what happens to you as a person will be decided by these default provisions that are laid out by these rigid laws by people who don't even know you. Your hard-earned assets and your care may just end up in the hands of someone that you would rather not otherwise choose, such as an ex-spouse, maybe a relative, a child who you haven't spoken to for a while, people who are estranged relatives, somebody who you're not chatting for many, many years and then they'll call you. So let's break the mold of our cultural barriers of not engaging in estate planning. Live your best life today. Enjoy the fruits of your hard work and begin the process of building intergenerational wealth for your loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Khaled. Very insightful. And I know for this area especially, it can be one of the most contentious areas for those of us who do litigations. So of course, thank you for that insight. Our next panelist, welcome Mr. Foote, Mr. Abledon Foote. He's the only one joining us from out of Jamaica today. Welcome. Mr. Foote is the principal of a New Kingston law firm, Able Attorneys, and his areas of practice are commercial law, property law, contracts, tax, and criminal law. He also does personal injury. Today, Mr. Foote will be joining us with the topic, the legalities of doing business in Jamaica. Mr. Foote, welcome from Jamaica.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to the listeners. It's indeed a pleasure to be amongst my distinguished colleagues. My topic, as was indicated earlier, is the legalities of doing business in Jamaica. So once you think of business, the first thing one would think of is the state of the economy. So from information coming out of the Planning Institute of Jamaica, as also the IMF, Jamaica has experienced 20 consecutive quarters of growth prior to COVID-19. And this was primarily to be accredited to the varying service industries. The number one contributor to our GDP was tourism and the hotel industry, followed by financial services and remittance and construction. In relation to the last name area, which is construction, that brings me into the topic of the legalities governing conveyancing and property acquisition here in Jamaica. If ever there was a time to buy land or invest in real estate, which is considered to be a safe haven for many investors, it's now to do it in Jamaica. That's because of the current law. Transfer tax is now 2%, coming all the way from 5% of the purchase price. Stamp duty is fixed at $5,000 Jamaican, coming from 4%. And registration fee at titles office is 0.5%. So whether it is that you want to be a returning resident to buy a house here, a piece of land here, or you just really want to just invest and buy a piece of the rock, these are the remits that you should consider. For the more aggressive type of investors in real estate, you might want to consider a joint venture relationship where you, the investor, would buy the land and partner with a developer for him to build the property, whether it be an apartment complex or a commercial complex, and then you would get back a few units. My only caution on an arrangement like that would be to enter in that arrangement with a developer that you trust, and certainly you would have to hire an attorney to do certain due diligence for you and walk you through the process. There's also opportunities in the Airbnb market. We not only see that in the tourist areas like Ocho Rios and Montego Bay, but we even see that in the corporate area where people are buying apartments and renting them as Airbnb. There are huge opportunities there as well. In relation to companies now, if you want to form an actual company in Jamaica, that's a pretty straightforward process as well. You can hire an attorney to walk you through that process. The first step would be to do a name search, which it costs only $500 Jamaican, and then reserve the name. You would also pay the government a fee of 25,000 Jamaican, and you would have to execute a form called the BRF1 form, which is a super form, business registration form, that has all the particulars of the directors, shareholders, etc. The normal processing time to form a company in Jamaica is usually 5 days. Once you fill out the form, drop off requisite documents, you have to have with it as well the articles of incorporation, which is essentially the constitution of the company. You have standard articles that you can incorporate from the Companies Act, or you can have a variation of the standard articles and put some in that are to your liking. But before you form the company, you need a TRN, a tax number, essentially. If you're overseas and it's hard to get one, arrangements also can be made through an attorney to get that. You would need a letter of authority, the form, a certified copy of the identification, certified before a notary public. I heard a friend, one of my colleagues here, just touched on the topic of a power of attorney. That is definitely a very useful tool when you're overseas and you want business to be conducted in Jamaica, because that saves you the hassle of physically coming here and doing things. A power of attorney is essentially a document that allows another person who you trust to stand in your shoe to conduct your business. So whether it is that you want to open a bank account, to buy a piece of property, to file a lawsuit, you know, a power of attorney document can essentially help with getting these things done, you know, to buy properties, purchase motor vehicles, whatever the case may be. That document that will be prepared by a lawyer could assist you in terms of conducting your business here. The issue as well of work permits. If you start the business and you want to bring somebody from overseas to come to Jamaica to help, you can apply for a work permit for them. That process usually takes 6 to 8 weeks. You would have to get a market test done. A certain advertisement would have to be published in the Gleaner, and the requisite checks would have to be done to see whether or not that is a skill that's needed, because typically a work permit would not be granted if the skills are readily available here in Jamaica. The next avenue for doing business in Jamaica is the Jamaican stock market. Bloomberg in January of 2019 wrote an article titled "Welcome to Jamaica, Home of the World's Best Performing Stock Market." Last year, a number of the listed companies on the Jamaican Stock Exchange had capital gains of over 100%. That wasn't seen anywhere else in the world. And that was because of the macroeconomics in the country at the time. These businesses were doing very well, and they continue to do well now. The only little hiccup that's going on, and that's going on internationally, is due to the coronavirus pandemic, which everybody is trying to get control over. But the importance of investing through the Jamaica stock market is essentially lifting a certain burden from you. It allows you to be a part of a business and own a piece of a business without the headache of actually running the business. So what you really want to do is invest in companies that have strong track record, a good balance sheet, and that has very good and able management. So investing in the Jamaica stock market could definitely assist you to that end. And the last area I just wish to quickly touch on is the issue of estate planning, because you acquire all these assets, whether it's your land, your house, your business, your stock investment, your bonds, whatever the case may be, and you don't make adequate provisions for what happens to them when you die, because a lot of times, death isn't necessarily a planned thing. On a previous case that I did, a very wealthy person had passed and no arrangement was made in relation to his assets. And it was very difficult because nobody could identify where the assets were. And what we had to do is go to court, let the judge give a court order for me to serve on the requisite financial institutions for them to then disclose to us where his bank accounts were, etc. You really could avoid all of this if you create a will, and in that will you identify your assets clearly. You give full particulars of everything, all your bank accounts and all your assets and what happens to it when you die. And it would be advisable to get two executors, two people that you can trust in the event that something happens to one person. The wishes of the deceased can be executed by the other executor. And these are some of the legalities of doing business in Jamaica. If you have any questions about anything else, you could send an email to me at ableattorneysja@gmail.com. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Foot. Quite on time, Mr. Foot. Our next panelist this evening joining us is Miss Abigail Hugh. Miss Abigail practices here in Florida also, and her areas of expertise is family law. Ava, are you there? Welcome. We seem to be having a little bit of technical issues.
Here we are.
Welcome, Ava.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you for introducing me. My name is Abigail Hugh, and I'm a native of St. Thomas, Jamaica, where I attended Martin Bay Prep School. Today, I'm the founding attorney and managing attorney for the Heritage Firm here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I practice family law. I also practice estate planning. Today, what I'm going to talk to you about is an issue that has come to my attention on several occasions, and I'm sure that other family law attorneys are having this issue as well. With coronavirus, it's difficult for many people to exercise time sharing and to comply with their time sharing agreements as they have in the past, because everybody's being asked to stay at home. So for all the people out there who are parenting, co-parenting, in the process of a divorce, or people who are separated, I would like to give a few tips as to how you can navigate this process in a world where we're not really sure of exactly what's going to happen. So how do we successfully co-parent during the COVID-19 crisis? How do you maintain your part of what you need to do for your child? What if the other parent refuses to even abide by the agreement? What do you do? Right now, the two biggest things that everybody needs to remember is that we all need to have empathy, and we all need to try to be as generous as possible with the other parent during this time, solely for the benefit of the child. The first thing is that everybody has to try to keep themselves as healthy as possible. Complying with all the local guidelines and modeling good behavior for your children, including doing extensive hand washing, wiping down different surfaces that are touched often, maintaining social distancing, especially when you're out there outside of your home, just making sure that you do what you need to do to keep yourself safe and healthy is the best thing that you can do for your children in ensuring that they're safe and healthy. This also means that you must stay informed, meaning not that you're on Instagram or Facebook looking to see, what they're saying about the disease today or what they're saying about, what's going on in the world. You want to make sure that you're looking to media that is trustworthy and media that's going to be giving you, appropriate information as to what you should be doing to stay healthy. Number two is being honest with your children. While I realize that we don't even know how to deal with some of the things that are happening nowadays, we have to do the best we can to be as honest as possible with our children. So yes, we don't know what's going to happen, but at the same time, we have to try to convey as calm and as cool and collected a demeanor as we possibly can, and try to convey to our children that, this is a temporary thing and things are going to get back to normal in time. Sometimes we can be, on speakerphone with our friends and we don't realize that the children are listening. Always assume that they're listening and don't say inappropriate things or expose them to, news all day long. Even though right now I know it's difficult not to keep our eyes fixed on the news, we have to be mindful of our children, especially children who are in the process of having their parents separated or going through any sort of divorce or separation issue. Make sure you ask your children how they're feeling. How are they feeling during this time? And if they have any questions of you as to what's happening. Then you go do your research and figure out, what's age appropriate for your children, because you're not going to tell a 15-year-old the same thing that you would tell your 5 or 6-year-old. So just make sure that you are providing them with the most age appropriate response as possible. Try to be as compliant. Number 3, try to be as compliant as possible with your time sharing agreement. Sometimes we let our emotions about a lot of things get in the way and we don't focus on the children. So try to be as compliant as possible. Yes, you can't do everything. You can't fly. You can't, do basic things that we normally do, but do your best to drop the kids off and exchange the children as you normally would, while taking the most stringent precautions that you possibly can to ensure everybody's health and safety. Number 4, be creative. Be creative. You can do so many things via FaceTime or Skype or whatever video, WhatsApp, or whatever video conferencing apps that you use. You can be as creative as possible with your children and the other parent who's missing out on time. You can have them watch videos together. They can watch movies together. They can read books together, play games together. And even if it's not, even if it's not just the other parent, try to make sure your children are interacting with other people outside of your home, especially since we're stuck inside and, they get cagey too. So be creative. Try to encourage closeness between the child in your home and the child in the and the other parent. because at the end of the day, it's all about what's best for your child. Number 5, be transparent, especially with respect to your health and any exposure that you may have had to the virus. Make sure that if your child is exhibiting any symptoms of the virus, that you immediately contact the other parent and let them know, so that you can both discuss the issue together and come up with a plan that will work not just for you, not just for the other parent, but for both of you as well as the child, and obviously with the child being the center and with the child being the most important party in the discussion. So you're going to have to make sure you're transparent with the other spouse during this time. This is the hardest one, I think, for many people who are experiencing divorce or separation, or having to co-parent with the former spouse or partner. Trying to just be generous, provide makeup time, try to agree that maybe you can't fly now because things are too, scary, and maybe Christmas, or maybe they get an extra holiday, maybe they get the whole Christmas this year. So try to be as generous as possible to the parent who isn't in the care of the child during this time, so that that parent feels that they're also going to, get to make up that time with the child. And so that the child knows that they're going to be able to have that in-person time with the parent as soon as it's reasonably healthy enough and safe enough for them to do so. And the final thing is, with respect to finances, be as understanding as possible, because as everyone knows, the virus has affected people who are at all across the spectrum. Okay, people who own businesses, people who are nurses and doctors, people who unfortunately don't have jobs anymore. So everyone is experiencing financial hardship for the most part with respect to this virus. So we have to be mindful about, if you're the person who receives child support, that you're, understanding that the other party may not be working, or may not be working as much as they used to at this point. And for the person who is having to pay the child support, give what you can, as much as you can, because at the end of the day, like I said, everything is really for the benefit of the minor child. So try to be as understanding as possible. During this time, turn the adversity into an opportunity. This is the time for you to show your children that you can come together, make decisions together, and do what's best for them. Why? Because they're going to remember this time. Just like we as adults know that we're going to remember this time for the rest of our lives. And, that's without having any discussion about George Floyd and the civil rights issues that are happening, not just in the United States, but around the world. So as Jamaicans, we know that we have always been in support of these things. And so, we sort of have a different perspective maybe than some other people, but this is a time that everybody's going to remember. I say that to say, make sure that you're considering your children during this time and what you want them to remember about you and how you behaved during this time. Because if the other party has to go to court over this, over time sharing that one party isn't giving the child, guess what's going to happen? Both of you are going to have to spend time and money to try to resolve it. And eventually, probably what's going to happen is the parent who was having the time withheld from them is going to get makeup time sharing. So save yourselves all the trouble and save the children the trouble of having to go through any of that. And like Ms. Small said earlier, guess who gets paid? All the lawyers get paid. And then whatever's left is what you end up with. So try to consider your children before you do anything during this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ava. And of course, courts in all jurisdictions, the primary concern is always what's in the best interest of the child.
Exactly. The
Yes.
best interest is what the courts will all look at every time they're making decisions with respect to children's issues. So that's across the board.
Thank you, Eva. And of course, our final panelist for today, Ms. Latanji Williams. Welcome, Latanji. Ms. Williams is also based here in Florida, and our areas of expertise are immigration, criminal law, family law. She's also a member of the Northeastern Florida Human Trafficking Coalition, where she's fighting a very important battle, which is human trafficking. Of course, welcome, Latanji.
Thank you. My name is Latanji Williams, and I represent the St. James Parish. Also, like everybody out there in the world.
Okay.
I want to share my screen to go over a few things. We'll start with business immigration first, and then we'll journey over to immigration, which is a little more interesting for most people. So, okay, so just to start, the immigration landscape right now, USCIS was closed for approximately 3 months when COVID and everything started to hit. And they just reopened about approximately, 2 weeks ago. What I recently read in the news is that there's an anticipation of a furlough coming next month. And the reason for this furlough is because USCIS is a fee-based agency. That means all of their money that they receive to pay salaries and everything else comes from the fees that petitioners, beneficiaries that they pay to get the green card, student visa, or whatever benefit that they're seeking at the time. Right now, because of the decline in applications and things because of COVID, they are experiencing a budget shortfall. And so they're trying to work with Congress to receive $1.2 billion in funding. Hopefully they get what they need, but if not, there's going to be some furloughs that come about. If they do receive the $1.2 billion, they have to pay that money back because remember, they operate as a fee-based agency. So they will have to pay these funds back to the US government, and they are projecting to do so by charging a 10% hike on the forms as they are today. So if you have anything that's pending, you're trying to get a student visa, green card, naturalized, whatever it may be, you may want to try to start getting those applications filed before this 10% increase possibly happens. So on the business-based side, people always say, well, what is business-based? I thought immigration was immigration. Normally we group it as business-based or the family-based side. Many people know family-based to cover green cards as well as naturalization applications. But on the business side, you see things like work visas. The common ones for Jamaicans are H-1B and H-2B. So with the H-1B, you'll see professors, physicians, people with specialized education and knowledge. H-2B, we normally see many Jamaicans work in this field in hospitality and the nursing profession sometimes. We also have au pairs that come over as nannies that fall under this category as well. Right now, these industries are taking a hit, especially on the H-2B side, because they're in their peak season. Many of them start getting busy around spring break when teenagers, college students, and even some older adults that come to these cities for purposes of having a good time. So even throughout the summer, these hotels, no one's really checking in and spending money. So a lot of the agencies that staff Jamaicans that come over with the H-2B, they basically have been at a loss. They can't operate their staffing agencies. And then we see some Jamaicans that have been stuck here in America because they could not leave at a certain point. They weren't sure if they should leave, were they going to get quarantined, were the borders going to be open. We also see the entertainment visas that most Jamaicans have under the business-based side. And lastly, student visas. With student visas, we have students here, not many, underage children, meaning minor children, that are on student visas for boarding schools. And then most of the students are at the collegiate level. I recently had a situation that came about with a student that was here on a on a student visa that got stuck at her boarding school. She's in the 8th grade, didn't know what to do. Her family didn't know what to do. And so what we worked out, there was a grandparent here locally that could take and receive the child and care for the child. So we did a concurrent custody, which kind of crosses over into the family law arena. And so the school did not want to turn the child loose, and then the child was just isolated at the school alone. So we did get that worked out for that student to be with family during this crisis. As far as human trafficking goes, we see an overall increase in abuse in the family law area, but human trafficking also ties into immigration. And so we see people stuck at home, no kids are at school, relatives are moving in together to save on finances, to combine resources. And so there's been a lot of abuse, physical, sexual, as well as emotional. People like to victim blame when it comes to human trafficking. The most common story I've heard is, you know, how do these people allow people to control their lives and make them do things that they don't want to do? And so I wanted to point out that human trafficking is psychological, but it also ties into immigration law. A lot of times people will come to this country with their tourist visa or what have you. And even if they have something else, like a student visa, their abusers typically would take their documents from them. So now you're in a position where you can't prove who you are. You're afraid to go to the police because you can't prove who you are, or if you're already out of status, you definitely don't want to run into the police. So sometimes that's where the biggest form of control comes from. You don't have any money, you can't get a job because, again, you can't prove who you are, even if you have a work permit for the ability to work. So why do people turn to human trafficking during this time? It's very profitable. Unfortunately, we don't want to hear that, but we have kids outside playing because they're tired of being in the house. Kids are walking up and down the street. People are having more people around them because out of boredom or what have you, or parents are essential workers and they may be gone for the day, and the students think, I can have a few friends over, my parents won't know, things of that nature, but children are being abducted. And then they're put into this human trafficking ring. And so what does that mean for someone? It's not always a stranger. That's one of the things I wanted to point out. Sometimes we have what's called the Casanova trafficker. That can be the older boyfriend that younger girls get enamored with. And then that boyfriend becomes an abuser by saying, hey, you know, I'm short on money. I can't pay for this. I can't do that. If you love me, you'll do X, Y, and Z for me. And it's not sexual pleasure for himself, it's for other people. And then of course he reaps the benefit of that. Also, we see with other people that are strangers to the victims, but I noticed with the human trafficking force that I work for, we see a lot of gangs turn to human trafficking now. And you may say, well, why is that? Well, it's more profitable for them to use a woman's body as opposed to committing, let's say, a robbery. So if a gang wants to go out and they need some money and they rob, you know, someone that is at the ATM, let's say they get $500 in that robbery, that's fine, but that $500 basically will not stretch that long. So they're going to be looking for the next thing to do. Well, right now it's not much to do because not many things are open. But with a woman's body, and sometimes men are victims as well, but with a woman's body, you can sell that woman multiple times in a night and make more than that $500 from robbing one person. And you can also do so from day to day and perpetually, I guess, if it can last that long. So it's more profitable for them. A lot of gangs are not relying on their traditional ways of making money. They are turning to human trafficking. There is help for young ladies or young men that may find themselves in this situation. I know before I said they don't want to come forward because they're afraid of the repercussions from the police, getting deported, being detained, and all of those things. Over 13 years ago or so, Congress did pass laws that help these individuals. The first one was with a T visa or a U visa. The T visa is for human trafficking victims. It's designed to make them come forward. Same thing with the U visa. The difference between the two is just that the T visa is for trafficking victims. The U visa is for individuals that are victims of serious crimes. So you may not be trafficked, but if you've had something else happen, home invasion, robbery, you've been shot, attempted murder against you, there's a whole category. I won't go into all of them, but basically these visas are designed for victims to work with law enforcement, to come forward, not be afraid, help us to get the bad people off the street, and also help the victims to correct their immigration statuses. Human trafficking can be reported at the number that I've provided here. Sex trafficking, also if you suspect a young lady of not wanting to come forward, you can talk to that person, you can refer her to our task force or refer her to this number. Things that you can look out for with these victims, usually they're young girls. I mean, they've started as young as 9 years old. It's very disgusting behavior, but we've seen victims as young as 9 years old. A lot of times these girls, even in middle school, they have very nice, expensive things. They miss a lot of school, or when they are in school, they're tired, exhausted. So even talking with your children to help them identify their friends that may have fallen victim to trafficking. Last thing I want to talk about is just some little tidbit information about COVID. I know there has been some recent legislation passed here in the US regarding the public charge rule. And what that does is prevent certain people from entering the country or adjusting to get a green card if they are somehow going to rely on the US government for assistance in the future. So when COVID hit and we started to see stimulus funds being passed out, people being advised to go test at local centers, pop-up shops, a lot of people were afraid to do so. And I just wanted to let everyone know that the stimulus funds, the medical assistance, the medical testing, none of that is a federal tested benefit. So it's not means tested, which means you don't have to fear the public charge rule down the road. It will not apply under those circumstances. We do want people to come forward and get tested so we can get a grip on this disease, virus, I'm sorry. So please go out and test. You can receive the stimulus funds and you can go to the hospital for treatment without a fear. Throughout the US, I have seen certain states that are providing assistance to individuals that are undocumented. For those of us that are documented, we can receive money in our accounts.
I must interrupt. Thank you, Latanji. We are almost out of time.
See that website there for throughout the US, different states have different benefits. So just make sure they get that website there.
All right, and I'll just throw a few questions to the panelists directly before we have to go. And the first one is to Ava. Ava, now that we're in a pandemic, what are the legal steps or emergency document can parents put in place to protect their child during this period? In case there's any death or long-term illness, what are the important legal steps to take now?
In case there's a death?
Or long-term illness or hospitalization.
Or long-term illness.
And there are minor children.
What parents can do is obtain life insurance policies and put the other parent as the beneficiary, or a disability insurance policy as well would do the same thing, so that you can secure support for the children. So those are two avenues that people can use if they would like to do that.
Thank you. And Colette, similar question for persons who, especially here in Florida and other states, you may have a senior that is in a nursing home or is in a hospital on a long-term basis. What steps can be taken legally to protect the interests of those?
Okay, that's interesting, because one of the issues that we're facing right now is that the nursing homes and facilities are on a lockdown. So they're not allowing visitors, which is a cause for concern for many of the caregivers or the family members who are on the outside looking in. And when I say looking in, I mean literally looking in, like going to the windows and seeing them, because they can't see them any other way. Because these are the people who protect them and make sure that they're getting their medication, those diapers are being changed, and that they're seeing their doctor, and that they're not developing bed sores. And those are the eyes and the ears of a lot of the clients who are in nursing homes, and now the families are kept out. So I recommend is getting in contact with a nursing home and set up some kind of FaceTime or video calling with your loved ones, even if they're not aware. You know, that at least you could see them, you could see what's going on, and the staff knows that you are on top of that. Still make sure that you stay in touch with the doctor's office and the caregivers. But that is a huge concern, because you do want to make sure that they're safe, and you don't want everybody walking through the nursing home, but at the same time, the eyes and the ears are being kept out. So you just have to continue to make sure that you communicate with them by whatever means are available. And if you need to donate a tablet or an old iPhone or something to the facility to make sure that you could speak with your loved ones, then you got to do that. But you have to be vigilant.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Colette. Thank you for those two last answers. Unfortunately, we are out of time. It was a very informative and lively discussions. Of course, the contact information for all our panelists will be listed. And I'm going to turn over back now to Michelle. And of course, Michelle will do the closing.
Okay, wow, everyone, it was really good. A lot of information was filtered to everyone. So everyone, we're actually in the know right now. So thank you all. And if you do need additional information and clarification on anything, you could definitely reach out to the organization or the attorneys directly. I know someone asked me for Abel's information. So I did provide it, but you could definitely reach out to us and we provide that information. Okay, thank you all. Thank you, panelists. That's it, we're smiling.
Great job. Great job. Good.